Ever imagine trying to steer a company that's like doubling in size every single year?
Oh, wow.
That's hypergrowth.
Yeah.
And while it sounds like exhilarating, it also throws some serious curveballs at you.
Oh, for sure.
So today, we're diving deep into how to manage in the middle of that whirlwind.
It's a whole different ballgame. It demands a fresh perspective on, like, everything, especially leadership.
We've got these insightful notes from a conversation with Darius Lahoutifard, the founder of MEDDIC Academy, all about training managers, specifically in those hypergrowth startups. And the focus is on sales team, which, let's be honest,
Yeah,
a lot of leaders could use some extra guidance in that area.
absolutely. Especially with the constant pressure to, like, scale up and hit those ambitious targets.
So what we're aiming for here is to equip you with the key principles and strategies that like successful managers use to not just survive, but thrive in this kind of environment.
Right.
And one of the first things that struck me in Lahoutifard's notes was this idea that your primary team as a manager, it's not actually your direct reports.
Interesting concept, right? He argues that it's the management team itself. That should be your main focus.
Yeah, I can see how on the surface that might seem kind of counterintuitive. Why wouldn't your priority be the people you're directly responsible for?
Because when that management team, when it's functioning as a cohesive unit, it creates this ripple effect throughout the whole company.
Okay.
Better collaboration across departments,
Yeah.
fewer conflicts, everyone's rowing in the same direction towards a common goal.
Instead of like everyone operating in their own little silos, you're building more of a unified leadership structure.
Exactly. And that can be especially crucial in a hypergrowth environment, where things are moving so fast. Think about it. Companies doubling in size every year.
Right.
They're constantly bringing on new people, new teams, new departments. If the managers aren't aligned, it can quickly become, well, chaos.
Yeah.
Total chaos.
I imagine it could even create a sort of us versus them mentality between different departments.
Oh, yeah.
Which is definitely not conducive to a healthy work environment.
No. Lahoutifard calls those factors.
Okay.
And they can be incredibly detrimental to a company's success. Think about the classic tension between, say, sales and customer success.
Right. Classic conflict.
Sales might be pushing to close as many deals as possible.
Yeah.
Customer success focused on making sure those customers are happy and retained.
I've seen that play out so many times.
But if those managers of those teams, if they're part of the strong, unified management team, they can work together to address those potential conflicts proactively. They can make sure sales isn't overselling, that customer success has the resources they need to support those new customers, and that both teams are working together towards the company's overall goal.
So it's really about building that sense of shared responsibility and collaboration from the top down.
Precisely. And that's why Lahoutifard stresses the importance of investing in the management team as a unit.
Okay.
So that might involve regular meetings to discuss strategy, challenges, professional development opportunities to, enhance their leadership skills, or even team building activities to strengthen relationship, build trust.
Sounds like you're really laying the foundation for a more cohesive and effective organization as a whole.
Exactly. And that foundation, it's essential for navigating, well, the unique challenges of hyper.
Now, another interesting point Lahoutifard raises is the power of storytelling in management.
Okay.
And I have to admit, when I first saw that, I was like, is this really a priority when you're dealing with the breakneck speed of hypergrowth?
Yeah, I get it. But storytelling is actually more important than ever in this kind of environment. It taps into something fundamental.
Yeah.
The human need to understand the why behind our work.
Because it's easy to feel like you're just spinning your wheels.
Right.
When everything's moving so fast. You're hitting those deadlines, closing deals, launching products, but you might lose sight of the bigger picture.
You lose the forest for the trees.
Right.
And that's where storytelling comes in. A skilled manager, they use stories to connect those individual actions to the company's larger purpose.
Helping people see how their work contributes to something meaningful, something bigger than themselves.
Exactly. And this is especially crucial for sales who are so often focused on those quarterly targets that they can lose sight of the overall mission.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So what kind of stories are we talking about here?
Well, Lahoutifard highlights a few different types. Stories of failure, stories of good examples, and inspiring stories.
Okay.
Each serves distinct purpose.
Let's start with the stories of failure.
Okay.
Now, that might seem a bit counterintuitive, especially in a high-pressure, results-oriented environment.
Yeah.
Why would you want to highlight mistake or setbacks?
Because it demonstrates vulnerability, authenticity.
Okay.
When leaders are willing to share their own, misstep, it creates a safe space for others to do the same, builds trust, and encourages a culture of learning.
So it's about normalizing failure as a part of that growth process.
Exactly. And it's about shifting the mindset from seeing those mistakes as something to be ashamed of to seeing them as opportunities.
Right.
Valuable opportunities for learning and improvement.
Do you have any examples of companies employees or leaders who have done this effectively?
Zappos CEO Tony Estee often talks about like early struggles selling shoes online. And Netflix co-founder Reed Hastings has been pretty open about the company's difficult transition, from DVDs to streaming.
Yeah.
They could have easily swept those failures under the rug,
Right.
but they chose to share them, turning them into valuable lessons about resilience, adaptation.
I think it makes those leaders seem more human.
Right.
More relatable, which I think is really important, especially in a fast-growing company where it's easy to feel like you're just, a
Cog in the machine.
Yeah, exactly.
And it creates a culture where people feel comfortable taking risks, knowing that it's okay to fail as long as you learn from those failures.
Okay, so that's stories of failure. What about stories of good examples? How do those play into this?
Those are all about celebrating successes, reinforcing the values and behaviors you want to see more of. It's a way to say, this is what excellence looks like in our company.
Like that story about the Ritz-Carlton employee who went above and beyond to return a guest's forgotten belongings.
Yes. Classic example. That story's become legendary, showcasing their commitment to, exceptional customer service.
Yeah.
It's not just about those grand gestures, though.
Right.
Could be something as simple as a team member staying late to help a colleague finish a project.
Right.
Or going the extra mile to solve a customer's problem.
It sounds like these stories are really about creating a shared understanding of what, good looks like.
Exactly. And it's about giving people concrete examples of how to live those values in their day-to-day work.
Okay, so we've got stories of failure, which are about vulnerability, learning, stories of good examples, which are about reinforcement, celebration. What about the inspiring story?
Those are the stories that lift people up, motivate them to aim high, pursue ambitious goals.
Okay.
Think about those classic underdog stories that, say, Nike tells so well, where athletes overcome incredible odds to achieve greatness.
Oh, I can totally picture those ads.
Yeah.
They're so effective at tapping into that, emotional drive to push yourself beyond your limit.
Exactly. Or think about, an Elon Musk consistently painting this vision of the future.
Yeah.
Seems both, audacious and achievable, whether it's with Tesla, SpaceX, or Neuralink.
He's definitely a master storyteller. I can see how that ability to articulate, a compelling vision is crucial for motivating and inspiring a team, especially in a company that's trying to do something, truly innovative and groundbreaking.
Absolutely. Inspiring stories are about creating that sense of possibility and excitement.
Yeah.
Reminding people that they're a part of something bigger than themselves, something that, has the potential to change the world.
Okay, so we've got these different types of story, and they all play a role in, shaping the culture and motivating the team. But let's be practical. How does a manager actually integrate storytelling into their, day-to-day leadership?
I mean, it's one thing to understand the concept, but it's another thing to actually be a good storyteller.
It takes practice.
Yeah.
But the key is to be mindful of the moments that lend themselves to storytelling. Did someone on your team go above and beyond? That's a chance to share a story of a good example. Did a project fail? That's an opportunity to talk about lessons learned and encourage a growth mindset.
So being aware of the stories that are already unfolding around you and finding ways to weave them into your communication.
Exactly. And it's about connecting those stories back to the company's goals, values.
I imagine it also helps to be authentic. If it feels forced or contrived, people are going to see right through it. Totally. The best stories come from the heart. The ones that reflect your genuine passion and belief in the company's mission.
Okay, so storytelling is a key tool for managers in a hypergrowth environment. What else does Lahoutifard highlight?
He introduces what he calls the management triangle. It focuses on 3 key pillars: excellence, proximity, and leadership.
Okay, I'm intrigued. This sounds like it's getting into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to be an effective manager in this kind of environment.
Exactly. These 3 pillars, crucial for anyone who wants to not only manage, but truly lead a team.
So let's break down each of these pillars.
Sure.
What does Lahoutifard mean by excellence?
So it's about being a top performer in your field, having a deep understanding of your area of expertise and, consistently delivering high quality work.
Yeah.
You can't expect to lead others if you're not competent yourself. You need that credibility.
It's about walking the walk,
Yeah.
not just talking the talk.
But excellence alone isn't enough. You also need proximity.
Okay. This is about building strong relationships with your team, providing support, guidance, being present and available.
It's about being more than just a boss.
Uh-huh.
It's about being a mentor,
Yeah.
a coach, someone your team can trust and rely on.
Absolutely. It requires empathy, active listening,
Yeah.
a genuine interest in the well-being of your team members.
Makes sense. In a fast-paced, high-pressure environment, it can be easy to get, like, caught up in the numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Forget about the people.
And people are your most valuable asset, especially in a hypergrowth company. If they don't feel valued and supported, they're not going to stick around.
Right.
And all that growth will be for nothing.
So we've got excellence, the what you do, proximity, the how you connect with your team. What about leadership? How does that fit into the management triangle?
Leadership. This is where you move from telling to inspiring.
Okay.
It's about motivating others to achieve those common goals, setting a vision, and creating an environment where people feel empowered to do their best work. So leadership is about taking those skills, that connection you've built, and using them to like drive the team forward.
Yes.
To achieve something truly remarkable.
Precisely. It's about helping your team see the potential in themselves, in the company, and inspiring them to.
Now, this transition from like team lead to manager to leader, it's something a lot of people go through, especially in these like fast-growing companies.
Sure.
What are some of the challenges they might face as they try to develop those leadership skills?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is letting go of that doer mentality.
Okay.
You know, when you're a top performer, it's natural to want to do everything yourself.
Right.
But as a manager, you need to learn to delegate, to empower others, and to trust that they can get the job done.
That could be really tough for like high achievers who are used to being,
the best at everything.
Yeah.
There's also the challenge of like imposter syndrome. That feeling that you're not really qualified to be in this position and that you're going to be found out. And that can be especially pronounced in a hypergrowth environment where you're constantly surrounded by, brilliant people and everything's moving so fast.
I could see how that feeling of inadequacy could be like amplified in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
What are some strategies for overcoming that?
Well, first and foremost, it's about recognizing that imposter syndrome is incredibly common.
Okay.
Especially among, high-achieving individuals. It's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign that you care about doing a good job.
So normalizing those feelings of self-doubt and recognizing that, everyone experiences them at some point.
Exactly. And it's about focusing on your strengths, celebrating your accomplishments, and reminding yourself of all the reasons why you were chosen for this role in the first place.
It sounds like a lot of it comes down to mindset and self-awareness.
A lot of it does. And it's about seeking support from mentors, peers, or even a therapist. Talking about those feelings can help to take away their power.
Now, in addition to the internal challenges of imposter syndrome, there are also the external challenges of managing a team in a high growth environment.
Sure.
What are some of the things that managers need to be particularly aware of?
Well, one of the biggest is managing change.
Okay.
In a hypergrowth environment, things are constantly changing. Company size, the market, competition, the technology. It's like trying to hit a moving target.
Yeah.
It can be really disorienting for both managers and their team.
So flexibility and adaptability are key.
Huge. You need to be comfortable with ambiguity, willing to adjust your plans, quick to learn new things.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to communicate those changes clearly, frequently to your team, because when people feel like they're in the dark, it can lead to anxiety, distrust.
Another challenge I've noticed is preserving culture.
Oh, yeah.
As a company grows, it can be hard to keep that sense of community and shared purpose.
It's something that a lot of hypergrowth companies struggle with. You can't just assume the culture will take care of itself. You have to actively cultivate it.
So what are some strategies for doing that?
Well, it starts with defining your core values, making sure they're reflected in everything you do.
Yeah.
And hiring people who embody those values. And it's about creating opportunities for people to connect, formally and informally.
Yeah.
Whether it's team building activities, social events, or just having a space where people can, gather and chat.
Right.
Because those connections, that's what creates that sense of belonging, community, essential for maintaining morale and motivation, especially during times of rapid change.
So we've talked about managing change, preserving culture. What other challenges might managers face in a hypergrowth environment?
Managing expectation
Okay.
for both yourself and your team. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of hypergrowth and start setting unrealistic goals.
Right.
When those goals aren't met, it can lead to disappointment and burnout.
So it's about finding that balance between ambition and realism.
Exactly. It's important to be excited about the possibilities, but you also need to be grounded in reality.
Right.
Set clear priority. Be willing to to adjust course as needed and communicate those adjustments clearly to your team.
And I imagine transparency is key here.
Absolutely.
If people feel like they're being misled or like kept in the dark, it can erode trust and morale.
Honesty and open communication are essential for building a strong, resilient. And don't be afraid to say no sometimes. You don't have to take on every project, especially if it's going to stretch your team too thin or compromise quality.
It's easy to get like swept up in the momentum of hypergrowth and feel like you have to say yes to everything.
I know.
But sometimes the best thing you can do for your team and the company is to say no.
Exactly. It's about protecting your team's energy focus, making sure they're working on the things that are truly important and that are going to have the biggest.
Okay, so managing change, preserving culture, managing expectations, these are all crucial considerations for, managers in a hypergrowth environment. What about the individual goals and ambitions of their team members? How do you support individual growth and development when everything is moving so fast?
It's a great question. It's something managers need to be very mindful of. In a hypergrowth environment, it's easy for people to feel like they're constantly playing catch up.
Like they're running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up.
Exactly. And that can lead to burnout. So it's important to create a sustainable pace for your team, even when there's pressure to achieve more fast.
So how do you do that?
Well, it starts with recognizing that not everyone thrives in a hypergrowth environment. Some people are energized by constant challenge, while others find it, overwhelming and stressful.
So it's about understanding those individual needs, preferences of your team member.
Exactly. And it's about creating opportunities for growth, development that are aligned with those needs and preferences.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right. Some people might be eager to take on more responsibility, climb that corporate ladder. Others might be content in their current role, but they want to deepen their expertise, learn new skills.
And it's about having those open and honest conversations with your team members. About their aspirations and what they're hoping to achieve.
Exactly. And it's about providing the support and resources to help them achieve their goals, whatever those goals, whether it's mentorship, training, or just some encouragement and recognition.
Now, I know Lahoutifard also talks about the importance of feedback in the context.
Yes, he does. He sees feedback as a crucial tool for helping people stay on track, course correct when needed, and feel valued for their contributions.
Because it's easy to feel lost in the shuffle when everything is moving so fast.
It is. So it's more important than ever to make time for those regular check-ins, to provide specific and actionable feedback, and to celebrate those small wins along the way.
Because even in a hypergrowth environment, it's those small wins that keep people motivated and engaged.
Absolutely. It's about finding those moments of connection, recognition, appreciation that remind people why they're doing what they're doing.
So managing individual goals, ambitions, providing support, feedback, and celebrating those small wins. These are all crucial for creating that sustainable pace and preventing burnout in a hypergrowth environment. Any other insights on navigating the human side of this rapid growth?
Well, one thing that Lahoutifard emphasizes is the importance of self-care, both for managers and for their teams.
Yeah, that's something that often gets overlooked.
It does.
Especially when everyone's so focused on achieving those ambitious goals.
It's easy to fall into that trap of thinking you have to work all the time to keep up. But that's a recipe for burnout. So it's about setting boundaries, prioritizing your well-being, encouraging your team to do the same.
Because ultimately, a burnt-out team is not a productive team.
No.
It's certainly not a sustainable way to build a company.
And it's not just about productivity. It's about creating a healthy and fulfilling work environment where people feel valued and respected.
That's a great point. And it makes me think about this whole concept of delegation, which we haven't really touched on. In a hypergrowth environment, it can be so tempting to just do everything yourself. Because it will get done right. But that's not a sustainable approach.
You're right. Delegation is essential for any manager, but it's especially crucial in a hypergrowth environment where the workload is constantly increasing. Try to do everything yourself, you'll burn out and you'll stifle growth.
So how do you delegate effectively? What are some strategies for letting go and trusting your team?
Well, Lahoutifard has a really interesting framework for this called the problem-solving pyramid. He describes 6 levels of behavior that an employee can adopt when facing a problem.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. What are these levels and how can they help managers delegate more effectively?
So the first level is the least helpful. It's basically just reporting the problem and walking away.
Not my problem.
Exactly. Hey, boss, there's a fire over there. You deal with it.
Right. Not very helpful. I can see why that's at the bottom of the pyramid.
Right. Not exactly a shining example of initiative.
Not at all.
Level 2 shows a bit more effort. The employee investigates the causes of the problem,
Okay.
demonstrates some proactivity.
So at least they're trying to understand the why behind the issue.
Right, but they're still ultimately leaving the solution up to the manager. Level 3 is where they start suggesting potential solutions, but the decision-making still rests at the manager.
Okay, so we're seeing a progression here. More analysis, more engagement, but still not fully autonomous.
Precisely. Level 4 is where things get interesting. The employee not only proposes a solution, but also recommends a specific course of action.
Okay.
They're taking a stand, putting their analysis into a concrete gesture.
That feels like a real turning point.
It is. And this is where many people hesitate, afraid to fully own the solution. But level 5 is where the magic. At this level, the employee identifies the problem, diagnoses the cause, develops a solution, implements it, and then informs the manager.
Wow, that's impressive. They've essentially become a mini CEO for that particular problem.
Exactly. And it's incredibly empowering for both the employee and the manager because it frees up the manager to focus on higher level tasks and it allows the employee to develop their problem-solving skills and grow their confidence.
Now, that probably makes some managers a bit nervous. It requires a lot of trust.
It does, but that trust is essential for creating a high-performing team, especially in a hyper-growth environment where things are moving so quickly. Managers can't be the bottleneck for every decision.
So how do you encourage people to move up this pyramid? What are some practical steps managers can take?
Well, first and foremost, it's about setting clear expectations.
Okay.
Let your team know that you value initiative, problem-solving, decision-making.
So it's not just about doing what they're told.
Yeah.
It's about thinking critically,
Yeah,
taking ownership.
exactly. And it's about providing the necessary support and resources. That might include training on problem-solving techniques, decision-making frameworks, or communication skills.
Yeah.
It's like giving them the tools and the confidence to climb that pyramid.
Giving them the map and compass to navigate the challenges that they're going to face.
Exactly. And it's about creating a safe space for experimentation and even failure because mistakes are inevitable, especially when people are learning to take on more responsibility.
So shifting your mindset from seeing those mistakes as something to be punished to seeing them as opportunities for learning and growth.
Precisely. And celebrating those moments when someone takes initiative and solves a problem independently, because that reinforces the behavior you want to see more of, creates a positive feedback loop that encourages further growth and autonomy.
Okay, so we've talked about how to foster a more empowered and problem-solving oriented team. But in a hypergrowth environment, there's also this constant pressure to bring in new people.
Yeah.
How do you integrate all those new hires while maintaining a cohesive team and a strong company culture?
That's a great question. And it's something that Lahoutifard is very passionate about. He draws this interesting analogy. He compares the scaling phase of a startup to the experience of a child welcoming a new sibling.
Okay, that's an interesting analogy. How does that play out?
So think about it. When a new baby arrives, the older child, they suddenly have to share their parents' attention, their toys, their space. It can be a really unsettling experience. And in a similar way, when a company starts growing rapidly and bringing in lots of new people, existing employees, they can feel a sense of displacement.
Right.
Even a bit of jealousy, resentment.
Because it's their little world is being disrupted. They're no longer the
The special ones.
Yeah, the special ones.
The ones who know everything and have all the power.
Exactly. And they might worry about losing their position, their influence, or even their job. So it's crucial to manage that transition carefully, to reassure existing employees that they're still valued, and to help them see the benefits of bringing in new talent.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? What are some practical tips for navigating this delicate situation?
Communication is key.
Okay.
Be transparent with your team about the reasons for hire. Explain how it's going to benefit the company and ultimately benefit them as well.
Right. Because if it feels like the new hires are just there to take their jobs, that's going to create a lot of anxiety and resistance.
For sure. Emphasize that the company's growing, there are new opportunities for everyone, and that you're committed to supporting their development.
So it's about framing it as a positive thing, a chance for growth and expansion, not a threat.
Right. And it's about involving existing employees in the onboarding process.
Okay.
Have them mentor new hires, share their knowledge and expertise.
Yeah.
Help them integrate into the team.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
It creates a sense of ownership and responsibility.
Yeah.
And helps the new hires feel welcomed and supported.
Exactly. And it reinforces that sense of community and shared purpose.
Yeah.
So essential for a strong company culture.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of communication, reassurance, and involvement. Anything else that managers should keep in mind when integrating new hires in a hyper-growth environment?
Be patient. It takes time for new hires to get up to speed, to feel like they're truly part of the team.
Yeah.
Don't expect them to hit the ground running or to immediately embrace the company culture.
Everyone learns and adapts at their own pace.
Exactly. And it's important to provide, ongoing support and feedback to help them navigate the challenges of joining a fast-growing company.
So it's not just like a one-time onboarding process. It's an ongoing journey
It is.
of integration and development.
And the more you invest in those new hires, the more likely they are to become valuable contributors to your team, to the company.
Now, in this like rapid growth environment, another challenge I see is that of managing expectation. Everyone's excited. There's this sense of like, we can do anything.
Yeah, host speaker. But it can lead to, overpromising, setting unrealistic goals.
Right. And when those promises aren't met, it can like damage trust, morale.
Absolutely. So it's crucial to be realistic about what can be achieved given the resources, the time frame.
And to communicate those limitations clearly.
Yes.
To your team, your stakeholders, even your customers.
Right. Because transparency, it builds trust.
Yeah.
Better to underpromise and overdeliver than the other way around.
And it's okay to say no sometimes.
For sure.
You don't have to take on every project, every request, especially if it's going to stretch your team too thin, compromise quality.
Exactly. It's about setting healthy boundaries, focusing on what's truly important.
Okay, so managing expectation is crucial in a hypergrowth environment. What about managing the individual goals and ambitions of your team members? In this kind of fast-paced environment, it's easy for people to feel like they're constantly playing catch-up, which can lead to burnout.
That's a very real concern. It's like everyone's running on a treadmill that's constantly speeding up.
Right.
And if you're not careful, you can end up, exhausted and demoralized.
So how do you prevent that? How do you create a sustainable pace for your team, even when there's this pressure to grow and achieve more fast?
Well, it starts with recognizing that not everyone thrives in a hypergrowth environment. Some people, they're energized by constant challenge, while others find it overwhelming and
So it's about understanding the individual needs and preferences of your team members.
Exactly. And it's about creating opportunities for growth and development that are aligned with those needs and preferences.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right. Some people might be eager to take on more responsibility, climb that corporate ladder quickly. Others might be content in their current role, but they want to deepen their expertise, learn new skills.
And it's about providing the support and resources to help them achieve their goals, whatever those goals might be.
Exactly. Whether it's mentorship, training, or just, some encouragement and recognition.
Now, I know Lahoutifard also talks about the importance of feedback in this context.
He does. He sees feedback as a crucial tool for helping people stay on track, course correct when needed, and feel valued for their contributions.
Because it's easy to feel like lost in the shuffle when everything's moving so fast.
It is. So it's more important than ever to make time for those regular check-ins, to provide specific and actionable feedback, and to celebrate those small wins along the way.
Because even in a hypergrowth environment, it's those small wins that keep people motivated and engaged.
Absolutely. It's about finding those moments of connection, recognition, appreciation that remind people why they're doing.
So managing individual goals, ambitions, providing support, feedback, and celebrating those small wins, these are all crucial for creating that sustainable pace and preventing burnout in a hypergrowth environment.
Any other insights on navigating the human side of rapid?
Well, one thing that Lahoutifard emphasizes is the importance of self-care, both for managers and for their team.
I think that's something that often gets neglected, especially when everyone is so focused on achieving those end goals.
It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that you have to work all the time to keep up, but that's a recipe for burnout.
So it's about setting boundaries, prioritizing your well-being, and encouraging your team to do the same.
Exactly. Because when people are rested and recharged, they're more productive, more creative, and more resilient. So self-care isn't just about being nice to yourself. It's actually a strategic advantage in a hypergrowth environment.
Absolutely. It's about investing in your most valuable asset.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this second part of our deep dive into managing in a hypergrowth environment.
We have.
We've talked about the importance of building a strong and cohesive management team, the power of storytelling to connect people to the larger mission, the 3 pillars of the management triangle, and the crucial need for self-care and work-life balance.
And let's not forget about the importance of delegation. Empowering your team, fostering a culture of problem solving.
Yeah, it's almost like you need a whole new set of tools to lead effectively when everything around you is scaling up so rapidly.
You're right. Those traditional management approaches, they often fall short in these hypergrowth scenarios. You need frameworks and strategies that are specifically designed for this kind of dynamic environment.
And that's where Lahoutifard's problem-solving pyramid comes, right?
Yeah. Exactly. It's a fantastic tool for helping managers delegate effectively and empower their teams to take ownership of challenges. Remember those 6 levels of employee behavior we were discussing earlier?
Right. The ones ranging from simply reporting a problem to actually solving it independently and even collaboratively. I'm starting to see how this pyramid fits into the bigger picture of delegation and empowerment.
It's all about encouraging your team to move up those levels, become more proactive, more analytical, and more autonomous in their approach to problems.
So let's revisit those levels, but this time let's really dig into the practical implications for managers.
Okay, great. So picture this pyramid. At the very bottom, level 1, we have the report the problem and walk away approach. It's the most basic, almost instinctive reaction.
Right, the not my problem level. Not exactly what you want to see in a high-performing team.
Definitely not. Moving up to level 2, we see a bit more effort. The employee investigates the cause of the problem, demonstrating some proactivity.
So at least they're trying to understand the why behind it, which is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. But they're still ultimately leaving the solution up to the manager. Then we have level 3, where the employee starts suggesting potential solutions, but the decision-making still rests with the manager.
Okay, so we're seeing a gradual shift towards greater responsibility and ownership.
Right. And this is where a lot of teams get stuck. They're afraid to take that next step, to fully own the solution. But level 4 is where that shift really starts to happen. At this level, the employee not only proposes solutions, but also recommends a specific course of action.
So they're not just brainstorming ideas, they're actually analyzing the situation and making a concrete suggestion.
Exactly. And this is where, as a manager, you need to start letting go a little, trusting your team's judgment and empowering them to take ownership.
Because if you're constantly second-guessing their recommendations or stepping in to make the final decision,
Right.
they're never going to develop that sense of autonomy.
Precisely. And that brings us to level 5, which is really the sweet spot for effective delegation. At this level, the employee identifies the problem, analyzes the causes, comes up with the solution, implements it, and then informs the manager.
That's impressive. They've basically handled the entire problem from start to finish.
Exactly. And it's incredibly freeing for both the employee and the manager. The employee feels empowered and trusted, and the manager has more time to focus on higher-level strategic initiative.
Now, I can imagine some managers hearing this and thinking, hold on a minute, what if they make the wrong decision? What if they mess things up?
That's a valid concern, but remember, mistakes are a part of the learning process. And if you create a culture where mistakes are seen as opportunities for growth rather than something to punish, you're more likely to encourage that level of independent problem solving.
So it's about creating a safe space for experimentation and even failure.
Exactly. And it's about providing the necessary support and guidance along the way. You're not just throwing them into the deep end and hoping for the best. You're giving them the tools, resources, and mentorship they need.
And then, of course, there's level 6, which is the ultimate goal, right?
Yeah.
Where the employee not only solves the problem independently, but also involves others, fostering collaboration and collective problem solving.
Exactly. That's where the real magic happens. When teams start working together seamlessly, sharing their knowledge and expertise to tackle those complex challenges.
It sounds like this problem-solving pyramid is a really valuable framework for thinking about delegation and empowerment. But let's get even more practical here. What are some specific things that managers can do to encourage their team members to move up the pyramid?
One of the most important things is to set clear expectations.
Okay.
Let your team know that you value initiative, problem-solving, and decision-making.
Okay.
Don't just tell them what to do. Encourage them to think critically and come up with their own solutions.
So it's about shifting your mindset from being a taskmaster to being a coach and a mentor.
Exactly. And it's about providing the necessary training and resource. That might include workshops on problem-solving techniques, access to online courses, or even just regular one-on-one meetings where you can, brainstorm challenges together.
It's about equipping them with the tools and the confidence to climb that pyramid.
Precise. And it's about celebrating those moments when someone takes initiative and solves a problem independently. Recognize their efforts, share their success stories with the rest of the team, and make it clear that you value this kind of behavior.
Because, what gets rewarded gets repeated.
Exactly. And that's how you create a culture of empowerment and autonomy, where people feel confident taking ownership and solving problems without constantly needing to escalate everything to their manager, which is essential in a hypergrowth environment, right? Where things are moving so quickly and decisions need to be made, quickly.
Now, one thing we haven't talked about yet is how to manage up effectively in a hypergrowth environment. I imagine that's a whole different set of challenges.
It absolutely is. And it's something that a lot of managers struggle with, especially those who are used to being individual contributors and are now, suddenly responsible for leading a team.
So what are some tips for managing up effectively in this kind of environment?
Well, one of the most important things is to be proactive in your communication with your own manager. Keep them informed about what's going on with your team, both the good and the bad. Don't wait for them to come to you asking for updates.
Because no one likes surprises.
No.
Especially when things are already moving at warp speed.
Exactly. And it's not just about keeping them informed, it's about seeking their guidance support.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. Your manager, they want you to succeed, and they're a valuable resource.
That's a good point. It can be tempting to try to prove that you can handle everything on your own,
Oh, yeah.
but that can actually be counterproductive.
It can. It's important to remember that you're part of a team, and your manager is there to support you, so don't be afraid to lean on them when you...
Now, another thing I've noticed in hypergrowth environments is that priorities can shift really quickly. What's the top priority today might be completely irrelevant tomorrow. How do you, stay on top of those shifting priorities and make sure that your team is focused on the right thing?
That's a great question, and it's one of the biggest challenges of managing in a hypergrowth environment. Things are constantly changing, and you need to be able to adapt quickly. One of the most important things you can do is to stay closely aligned with your own manager and with the company's overall strategic goals.
So it's about making sure that your team's efforts are directly contributing to the company's top priorities.
Exactly. And that might require you to be willing to pivot quickly, to abandon projects that are no longer relevant, and to embrace new initiatives that are more aligned with the current strategic direction.
That can be tough, especially if you've already invested a lot of time and energy into a particular project.
It can, but it's important to remember that agility is key in a hypergrowth environment. You need to be able to adapt quickly and to help your team do the same.
And I imagine clear communication is essential here.
It is.
If people don't understand why priorities are shifting,
Yeah.
they're going to feel frustrated and demotivated.
Absolutely. Transparency is key. Explain the rationale behind the changes. Help your team understand how their work fits into the bigger picture, and acknowledge the challenges of adapting to, a constantly evolving environment.
So it's about being empathetic and supportive while also being clear and decisive in your direction.
Exactly. And it's about celebrating those wins along the way, no matter how small they might seem. Because in a hypergrowth environment, it's easy to get caught up in the chaos and forget to acknowledge the progress being made.
That's a great point. It's about finding those moments of celebration, gratitude amidst the whirlwind of change. Now, in addition to managing up and staying aligned with shifting priorities, what are some other things that managers can do to create a positive and productive work environment in a hypergrowth company?
Well, one thing that's often overlooked is the importance of simply having fun. It's easy to get so caught up in the pressure to perform that you forget to enjoy the ride.
I love that. It's about finding that balance between working hard
Yeah.
and having fun along the way.
Exactly. Encourage your team to celebrate their successes, to take breaks when they need them, and to, connect with each other on a personal level.
Because when people enjoy their work and feel connected to their colleagues, they're more likely to be engaged, productive, and resilient in the face of challenge.
Absolutely. And it's about creating a culture where people feel comfortable being themselves, sharing their ideas, and taking risks.
Yeah.
Because that's where innovation happens.
So it's about fostering that sense of psychological safety,
Yes.
where people feel like they can speak up without fear of judgment or reprisal.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that people are more than just their job.
Right.
They have lives outside of work. They have families. They have passion. And when you respect that, when you create a work environment that supports their whole selves, well, they're more likely to be happy, healthy, and...
That's such an important point, especially in a hypergrowth environment where it's easy to get caught up in the hustle and forget about the human element.
Right. It's about creating a sustainable pace, one that allows people to thrive, both personally and professionally. Because ultimately, that's what's going to lead to long-term success, both for the individual and for the...
So we've talked about managing up, staying aligned with shifting priorities, creating a fun and engaging work environment, and fostering psychological safety. Anything else that managers should keep in mind as they navigate the challenges of hypergrowth leadership?
Well, one final thought I would leave you with is to remember that leadership is a journey, not a destination. You're constantly learning, evolving, and adapt, and that's okay.
It's about embracing that process of continuous learning growth.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback, to experiment with new approaches, and to admit when you don't have all the answers.
Because no one is perfect, and we're all in this together.
Exactly. And the more you can foster that sense of shared learning and growth, the more successful you'll be as a leader in a hyper-growth environment.
And I think that's a great note to end on. We've covered so much ground in this second part of our deep dive. We've talked about the problem-solving pyramid as a tool for delegation and empowerment, the importance of managing up effectively, staying aligned with shifting priorities, creating a positive and productive work environment, fostering psychological safety, and embracing the journey of continuous learning and growth as a leader.
And I think one thing that's really stood out for me throughout this conversation is how crucial it is for managers in these hyper-growth environments to prioritize, the human element. It's easy to get caught up in the numbers and the pressure to perform, but ultimately it's the people who make it all happen.
I couldn't agree more, and that's why it's so important to invest in those relationships, to create a culture of trust and support, and to empower people to do their best work. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll be diving into one of the most essential elements of effective leadership, regardless of the environment: feedback. And we're back, ready ready to tackle the final piece of this hypergrowth management puzzle, feedback.
Yeah, it's interesting how something, so seemingly simple can be such a make or break element in any organization, but especially one that's, growing this fast.
It's true. And Darius Lahoutifard really hammers this point home in his notes.
Yeah.
He sees feedback as like the lifeblood of growth.
Yeah.
Especially in a fast-paced environment where you need to constantly course correct.
He's absolutely right. I mean, without clear, actionable feedback, it's like you're trying to navigate a maze in the dark. You might eventually stumble upon the exit, but it's going to be a lot more painful.
Right.
And inefficient than if you had, a light to guide.
And it's not just about receiving feedback, it's about giving it effectively as well.
Oh, totally.
Which I think a lot of people, even experienced managers, struggle with.
Oh, I completely agree. It can be incredibly daunting, especially if you're someone who, avoids conflict or worries about, hurting someone's feelings. But the way Lahoutifard frames it, feedback, when done right, it's actually a gift.
Okay, I can see how, in theory, it could be a gift, but how do you ensure it's received that way and not like, a lump of coal?
Right.
What are the key principles to keep in mind?
Specificity. Specificity is crucial. Vague statements like good job or you need to improve.
Right.
Practically useless. They don't actually tell the person, what they did well or what they need to work on.
I've been on the receiving end of that kind of feedback.
Yeah.
And it is so frustrating. You're left wondering, okay, but what specifically do I need to improve? Give me something to work with here.
Exactly. So instead of those empty platitudes, focus on specific behaviors, outcomes. I really appreciated how you handled that difficult client call. You stayed calm, professional, and you really went the extra mile to address their concerns. Or, I noticed you missed the deadline for that report. Can we talk about what happened and how to prevent that in the future?
Okay, so it's about being clear, concise, and providing those concrete examples.
Yeah.
Paint a picture for them so they can really see what you're talking about.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the importance of delivering that feedback with empathy. Remember, the goal here is to help the person grow and improve, not to make them feel bad or put them on the defensive.
Right. It's about focusing on the behavior, not the person.
Exactly. And it's about creating a safe space for open and honest dialogue. Start by acknowledging that giving and receiving feedback can be uncomfortable, and then set the stage for a constructive conversation.
Now, I know Lahoutifard is also a big advocate for making feedback a two-way street. It's not just about managers, giving feedback to their team members. It's about creating a culture where feedback flows in both directions.
He believes that managers should actively seek feedback from members well, which is something that can feel really vulnerable, especially in a high-growth environment where, everyone is trying to prove self.
But I imagine it can be incredibly powerful when it's done right. Shows that you value their input, that you're open to learning and growing, and that you're not afraid to admit that you don't have all the answers.
Precise. It fosters a culture of trust, transparency, and allows everyone to learn and grow together. And that shared learning and growth is essential for navigating the complexities of hypergrowth. When people feel comfortable sharing their ideas, their perspectives, even their criticism, creates a more agile and innovative organization.
So it's not just about making people feel good. It's about tapping into the collective intelligence of the team and using that to make better decisions and achieve better outcomes.
Exactly. Now, shifting gears a bit, we've talked a lot about the challenges of managing in a hypergrowth environment, but we haven't really touched on the personal toll it can take.
Yeah.
The long hours, the constant pressure to perform, the fear of failure. I mean, it can all lead to burnout if you're not careful.
It's true. It's easy to get so caught up in the excitement, the momentum, that you neglect your own well-being. And that's something that Lahoutifard addresses quite poignantly in his notes, bringing back that analogy of a child welcoming a new sibling.
It's such a powerful analogy, and it works on so many levels when talking about hypergrowth. Think about that older child again. They're used to having their parents' undivided attention.
Yeah.
But now they have to share it, and they might start acting out, trying to get more attention, even if it means, behaving badly.
And in a hypergrowth company, it's everyone is that older child, vying for attention, resources, recognition.
Exactly. And they might start working longer hours, taking on more responsibility than they can handle, and neglecting their own needs, all in an attempt to prove their worth.
Because they're afraid of being left behind or worse, replaced.
Precisely. And that can lead to a really unhealthy dynamic where people are constantly pushing themselves to the limit, sacrificing their health and well-being process.
So it's crucial for managers to recognize those signs of burnout.
Yeah.
Both in themselves and in their team members, and to intervene before it becomes a serious serious problem.
Absolutely. It's about creating a culture where it's okay to say no, to set boundaries, and to prioritize self-care. And it starts with the manager modeling yours.
Because if the manager is like working around the clock, never takes a break,
Yeah.
it sends a message.
Yeah.
That's what's expected of everyone else.
Exactly. So as a manager, it's important to be mindful of your own work habits, to set realistic expectations for your team, and to encourage them to take breaks, to use their vacation time, to prioritize their well-being.
And it's about having those like open and honest conversations about burnout and mental health.
Yeah.
It's about creating a safe space where people feel comfortable talking about these issues without fear of judgment.
Absolutely. And it's about recognizing that taking care of yourself, it's not selfish. It's actually essential for being an effective leader. When you're well-rested, recharged, and mentally healthy, you're better able to make sound decisions, to support your team, and to navigate the challenges of hyper.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into managing in a hypergrowth environment, I think it's important to step back and remember that even amidst all the chaos and pressure, it's still about people.
It is. It's about building relationships, fostering trust, empowering your team, and creating a work environment where people feel valued, supported, and inspired to do their best.
It's about leading with empathy, with a focus on both, like performance and well-being. And it's about recognizing that as a leader, you have a tremendous responsibility to set the tone for the entire organization.
Exactly. And that responsibility, it extends beyond simply achieving those business goals. It's about creating a positive, sustainable work environment, one that fosters growth, innovation, and yes, even a little bit of fun along the way.
Well said. This has been an incredibly insightful exploration of the unique challenges and rewards of managing in a hypergrowth environment. I hope our listeners walk away feeling equipped.
Me too.
With new insights and strategies to help them navigate this, exciting yet often turbulent phase of growth.
And remember, leadership is a journey, not a destination. So keep learning, keep growing, and keep leading with intention.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic to explore together. Until then, keep striving to be the best leader you can be.